And joining us in the studio now is the man who plays the eternally put-upon Roger, Dan Skinner. Dan, thank you for coming in.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I have to start by asking, why does Roger keep following Brian's terrible advice?
Well, because Roger looks up to Brian and he respects him for some strange way. Because Brian is sort of a risk taker and a bit of a maverick and flies by the seat of his pants, and he's everything Roger, I think, would like. Well, not like to be, but he just, it's a different sort of approach to life, and he thinks, oh yeah, I'll tag along with this guy because eventually one of his schemes is going to come good, and we're going to be all right, or I'm going to be okay. So yeah, and he has fun. He has fun with him, despite the the comeuppance that seems to occur to him like every week. Yeah. So I think that's why he sticks with him.
What intrigues me is, why did you choose to play the lower status character? I mean, was that a kind of deliberate thing on your behalf?
Well, do you know what? Initially, when we started working on it and started putting it together, it was like a few years ago when we were working on a filming project together, we had these characters that were exactly the same status. They were two divorced men, and they would ring each other up and go, "What are you doing on Thursday?" "Yeah, I'm looking to go to archery. Would you like to come with me?" And it was very funny, and we really enjoyed it, but the status was the same.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, if this is going to go anywhere, one of them has to be different to the other. And then we just started messing around with different sort of characters. I mean, the same sort of characters, but slightly different. And it turned out that Harry could ramp up the inner demon, in a very, very convincing way. So he became the sort of higher status, or the devious one, and I quite enjoy playing the put upon.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
It's not something that I normally do.
No, that is an interesting thing for a kind of actorly point of view. Any actorly types performers out there, is it more fun for you playing a lower status character? Is it easier? Is it funnier? It's funnier for the audience?
I think it's, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be. They seem to find it funny, but it's funny for me to play lower status because I don't look lower status. I mean, I've got quite a big bloke with a big beard, and so for me to sort of do that, it's quite it's against type, I suppose. But it's it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable just sort of playing, the person that just keeps coming back for more, and doesn't know when he's really, really down.
Can I ask about this? You mentioned that it came from a previous project you had. It seems to me the perfect format for a podcast. I mean, it can just go on open-endedly like a sort of soap opera, and what's more, you don't have to go into a studio to record it. I'm assuming sometimes in the background you hear a park or a cafe. I'm assuming you guys just do it on your phones from wherever you are.
Yeah. It's the perfect, I mean, you say soap opera, but I would say sitcom. It's a perfect sitcom, really, because these two characters start from one position every week. They get into a scrape, they go through a battle, and the consequences are fairly horrendous, but they learn nothing. So they end up in the same place that they started every week, and they're there, and so it all just starts again the following week. But you're right in terms of how we record it. We don't have to go into any studio, or we literally get our phones out and record a message into the phone, and send that to the other person, and then they listen to it and go, all right, I'll send one back, and that's how we do it.
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Chicken.
But my question, what I mean is, did you fit the show to fit into a podcast formula, or did you?
Well, we had the characters, and we did quite a bit of sitting down and talking into a microphone onto a computer for quite a lot of improvising. And then we thought, well, should we do a film, or should we do a TV show or something? And then we thought, well, what's the quickest way, or should we do Radio 4? What's the quickest way of getting stuff to people and not having to compromise at all, and podcast is the way. And now, with the technology such as it is now, you can make something of radio quality and get it to an audience via Twitter or the
seemingly
internet.
on your phone.
Yeah, basically we record it on our phone, send it to a producer who's got his computer. He adds a few sound effects, tightens it up, adds a theme tune. I mean, I make it sound like his job is easy. They do a brilliant job. Really enhances it, and then out it all goes in one bulk, bang. So it's just to us. It was like, well, that's a great way of developing characters and finding out if people like it and finding out if we like it, and there's no risk, and and it's an ideal testing ground.
I mean, stylistically as well, with the answer phone messages, I think it's really interesting because it's a podcast, and the likelihood people will be listening to it through sets of headphones. That kind of creates another level of intimacy, doesn't it? Where these could be voicemail messages that you yourself as the listener are receiving. Was there a sort of moment where you thought, that's the way to do it, that's how we should do it?
Yeah, there was a moment, but it wasn't like a light bulb moment. It was like, well, how do we do this then? And then I tell you what, I was listening to another podcast that I really, really like called The Homecoming.
Okay.
Which is they turn it into a TV show now for Amazon. And it's about a bunch of soldiers that come back from Iraq, and there's some sort of conspiracy and what have you. But a lot of that is done on the phone, and a lot of it's done through answer phone messages. And I thought to myself, what if you did a whole podcast that was literally just answer phone messages back and forth to each other? Would people, that's an experiment worth trying, and would people stand it, or would they be into it? Because obviously the two characters can't talk directly to each other. But I thought if you made the language and the dialogue interesting enough, so there was interesting things going on every time they spoke, then that I think would suck them in, and then you had an overarching story throughout the whole episode. I think it's interesting enough, and people, seem to be gripped by the stories, and they need to be a little bit outlandish as well. Sort of, it can't be that mundane. It has to be slightly heightened, because I think that's what makes it funny.
When you say that one sends the recording on the phone and then the other one responds. To what extent have you discussed the plot, or is it just what the other one wants to respond with?
Well, initially we started off and we didn't really know the plot. And if you listen to series one, there's a couple of episodes where it just rambles and there's quite a bit of flab on there and what have you. And then as we went through, doing it, and that's another great way. That's why this is a great way of testing stuff, because you write as you go and you develop as you go and you improve as you go, And so as we're going along and we're listening to it, we think, oh, that's not quite good enough. That's but we'll put it out anyway. It doesn't matter. And then you just tighten it up and tighten it up and tighten it up. And then we thought, right, we better know what's actually going to happen in this episode, so that we can then build and structure the story so that two things can happen, and then hopefully they can come together at the end. So that's what we sort of ended up doing. So Brian has his goal for the episode and I have mine, and the two have to sort of try and complement each other. Those are the best ones anyway. They're the two complement each other, and then there's some sort of disaster at the end where, because of what Brian has done, I have failed to do what I wanted to do. That's usually a fairly basic format.
Can I ask you the question that I'm sure everyone asks you, and that is, will Roger ever realise that Brian is stitching him up, and will Brian ever get his comeuppance?
No one's ever asked me that question.
Another great question from me then.
It is a good question. The answer to that is, in real life, yes, probably, but for the sake of this, no. I think Brian. The thing about Brian is very manipulative, in the way that Del Boy was to Rodney. So there is heart there, and there's but there is like a need for him to get his thing done, and he needs Roger to help him a lot of the time. So he'll give Roger just enough love and just enough like encouragement to keep him on side, and then will use him at every turn. But I mean, I don't think. I mean, I don't think.
Kill the golden
exactly,
goose.
Yeah, I don't think Roger will ever turn around and go, actually, do you know what? I've had enough of this. Because he sees Brian. I mean, he's his only friend.
Oh right,
He's his only friend. They met at a divorce group for. They met at a support group for recently divorced men, and Roger was there because he desperately wants to get back with his wife and see his son. Brian was there because he was forced to go by court order. Or he wasn't going to get, certain rights. So he's there sort of reluctantly. Yeah. But they met, and Brian just got his claws into Roger very quickly, and Roger was like, "Oh yes, this is lovely to have such a good friend of to get through all this with." I don't think they're gonna. I think he's gonna find out that he's being manipulated. No,
it seems like Roger's gone probably from one controlling relationship to another, really, doesn't it?
I think he's what you might call nowadays codependent. I think that's the phrase. He's got a bit of. What's that? Where a kidnapped victim falls in love with
Stockholm
syndrome. He's got a bit of that. Yeah.
Well, Dan. Thank you ever so much for coming in today. All the best with Brian and Roger, and maybe or maybe not, we'll see Brian get his comeuppance one day.
Maybe you will, but I don't think so. Not for a little while. But thank you anyway.